Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Swire from Garuda Promo. My guest today is Dylan Oakland. He is a digital marketing expert. And after growing his agency into seven figure, generate over $1 million sales annually, Dylan has turned his focus to help others start growing and they own their hyper profitable digital agency. How you doing, Dylan?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So you're the expert of digital marketing.
You set the expectations high there when you the short little bio there. You said I was a digital marketing expert, and I'm like, oh no, he's really setting it high. So I guess so. I don't call myself do I? I don't think I have it in my bio anywhere. If I do, I need to get rid of that. I don't like considering myself an expert, but
Well, it's
hey,
nice to be the expert in your field. But for the viewer who is listening right now, can you give us a quick bio and especially how you got started in your entrepreneur journey?
sure. And I'm gonna try to keep this like under a minute. So I started my first business when I was 14, selling cell phones on eBay. This was pre-iPhone, so this is when all the good cell phones were made in Europe and whatnot. And somehow, some way, like a wholesaler approved my application, so I could get these European cell phones at wholesale cost, ship them to the United States, flip them on eBay, and make like 50 to $100 a phone or something like that. So that was when I was 14. Shortly after that, I dropped out of high school and spent the next 12 or so years kind of bouncing around from one project to the next, getting absolutely nowhere, a negative, if anything. And eventually, in about the end of 2016, I scrapped everything and just focused on one single thing, which was my digital agency. And then I took it further and I just focused on one service, which was digital marketing management. And things quickly ramped up. 2018, I believe, was the first seven-figure year. We've maintained seven figures since then.
Nice. That's a
Did I do that in under a minute? I think that was under a minute. I'm going to give myself credit for that one.
There. And obviously, with your background, and then especially one of the questions that we want to focusing on today is you said marketing is the number one thing that a business should be focusing on. Why is that important? Especially we are in this last week, almost the end of December. Why is it important in a COVID world where everything seems like it's done virtually?
So really, it's about being able to buy growth. A lot of folks, they kind of come into marketing and they're thinking of like the old ways of doing marketing. You do a newspaper ad, or you have a billboard, or you do TV ads, and those things just aren't trackable. It's very difficult to track specifically how much of your growth came from those things, and it's difficult to scale up in most cases. But with digital marketing, you can track nearly perfectly. You can say I spent $872 and I got $1,600 back in sales. Like you can track it very effectively. And then in most cases, you can scale up basically infinitely. This is groundbreaking. I mean, these are, anybody in the digital marketing space has known this stuff for years, but there's still a lot of business owners that just don't grasp how important that stuff is. If once you get it figured out, whether it's Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, once you get these things figured out, you remove the question of how can I get more growth? And then you can focus on things like delivering your services. How can I streamline operations and things like that? If I'm adding a new person to my team, you're not really worried about the revenue as much because, hey, I know I can just increase my marketing and I can double my sales or something like that. It allows you to remove the question of where is growth coming from, and you literally have the ability to just buy the growth. You're not questioning like how are we going to put ourselves on the map? How are we going to grow? The question is answered.
So let me ask you this question. I think some of small business owner think of it this way. For example, I see my dentist, Dr. Emily, and then being in marketing, I ask her, how do you market your business? She kind of nervously laughed. I never do that. It's just I never place on any ads, and people call me on from Yelp, never talk to them. But then she get really good business. Even with this time, she's able to plan out her agency. I think a lot of small business owners think like that. They've been in business for a long time, and they are known in the local area, so they don't really focus on marketing at all. None. Spend $0. How would you suggest to them, and how would we make the case to see, even though you have decent success, you should still consider marketing?
Well, first I would say if you're not necessarily interested in growth, then it shouldn't be a priority. There are a ton of business owners out there who they do $200,000 a year in sales, 300,000, whatever. They don't really want to grow. They're a dentist office, as an example. They don't want to have another location. They're fully booked. They don't want to, scale the business up and take it any further. They just want to continue with the day-to-day, work on their operations, make things work more smoothly, and that's it. And that's totally fine. For those people, don't focus on marketing. That should not be a focus at all, because you don't want to grow. But for those people who, let's say you have a dentist and that dentist wants to add another location, or they're sitting there thinking like, wow, like my one location does X amount of revenue. Imagine if I had 5 locations or 10 locations. In those situations, then yes, focusing on growth, focusing on the marketing is absolutely mission critical, because then it allows you to make decisions with a clearer head. I mentioned earlier, like say you need to add a staff member. And this is especially critical for people that are really starting out. You need to add a staff member. Well, that might double your expenses. Well, if you have no idea when the next meal's coming in, when you're going to get your next sale, you have no idea where people are coming from. It's just random referrals, people randomly coming to you. Adding that person can be terrifying. If you're that dentist and maybe you're fully booked, but you don't know where all your customers coming from. You don't know how to add, double your sales. The prospect of adding a second location would be terrifying, because you don't know, you don't have control of it. But if you know that, hey, I can just add another 0 to my Google ads, or simply double the budget, and I'll be able to double my leads. It removes a lot of that fear factor and allows you to make better decisions.
I like your answer. Not a lot of marketing experts say you don't need marketing if you don't want to grow. And there are people, who are happy with where they are. They have tons of business, or they want to scale down, or they are really just having a good time, having the amount of client that they have. But then, like you said, if you are thinking about growing, at least you know what kind of tools available. So in case, maybe there's a certain months that are slower for whatever reason in your industry, then you can turn it up in the slow month, and then in your busy month, then do whatever that you're comfortable doing. So I think that's really, I don't hear that a lot from marketing experts.
I believe in, when it comes to sales, I never believe in convincing somebody. So I never want to convince somebody to use my service. You should almost like flip it, and they should almost be convincing you. So yeah, I mean, if somebody doesn't want to grow and they're very happy with where their business is at, then no, it is. There's no reason to waste the resources, waste your time working on something that doesn't fit up with you as the business owner. You set the schedule, you set the direction of what where you want the business to go. If you have no interest in 10x in your revenue, that's 100% fine. And there are a ton of people out there who are totally fine with where they're at.
Mm-hmm. So that brings me to another question. Especially during COVID right now, some of us are forced to cut our revenue, and some just couldn't open the door. And when we think about wanting more sales, the first thing to come to mind is lower pricing. So I wanted to get your take on low price versus value, especially during the difficult times that we're in right now.
So with value, I don't even know where I want to go with that. So value-based pricing is simply charging what you're worth. Uh, for some reason, especially those who have no marketing, they have no channel set up to bring in more leads, more customers, more clients, more patients, whatever. The first kind of thought that comes to mind is to lower your price, and there's just numerous problems with that. You never want to be the low end solution provider. You want to be the high end solution provider. Typically, the customers or clients are easier to work with. There's a higher profit margin. You deliver a better quality product or service. When you lower your pricing, you're automatically lowering the expectations too. But naturally, the customer doesn't understand that. If you were delivering $100 solution before, and you cut your price to $50, the people still expect that $100 solution, but now you're getting half the revenue for it. So maybe you increase your sales, great, but now none of your people, you're not going to be able to deliver the same quality, and none of your customers or clients are going to be happy. So it's a very slippery slope, especially for those that are starting out. You can get in what I call a price trapped situation. And basically what this is, and I see this mostly with service providers, whether you're a web designer, a graphics designer, or something like that, you're doing some kind of creative service delivery. In the beginning, people are like, well, I'll just really cut my prices to get people in the door, and then I'll get referrals, which logically makes sense. But what happens is I'm trying to let's use a web designer as a specific example. So you cut your price in half and you deliver somebody a website for $1,000 that you would typically do for $2,000. So you do a great job. Awesome. Fantastic. So then other people see that person's website and they contact them. And the first question is always, who did it for you? The second question is always, how much did they charge? Mm-hmm. So now you have these referrals that you're relying on to grow your business because you don't have any marketing set up. You're just focusing on referrals and word of mouth. You have these people that are coming to you with a certain price point in mind. So then you end up trapped in that price because everybody's coming thinking, oh, they charge $1,000 for a website in this specific example. This can also work for photographers, plumbers, any kind of home improvement service providers, any kind of service type business. I see this all the time where they get trapped in these low prices, and you can't double your pricing, you can't increase your pricing because the person's coming in with a certain price point in mind. So it's very slippery slope. Don't do it. Like, it's very tempting. It's counterintuitive. I actually believe if you want to increase your sales, you should actually increase your price. Which just sounds crazy, but it works.
Yeah, I think that's a really true statement. Sometimes it's scary to do, though. It's
absolutely terrifying.
When you think about it, like you said, if you're expecting certain type of price, then you get people from all those group. But then it's scarier. You might get less client, but then if you charge what you're really worth, you're working with projects that you actually engage, right? They're meaningful client, they have the right expectation. And if you have to throw in maybe an extra hours or maybe an extra freebie, you can afford to. If you have razor thin margin, then you can't really afford to do anything. So
absolutely,
I hate to have people come back to us because it initially on paper we are a little bit more than other clients, but then every single things that you wanted to do in addition, they charge you. So end up the bill is being add up. So reversing to the consumer level too, you got to get into someone really cheap, but then the industry standard, you all have the same thing. For example, let's say buying a car, the car is there's a base price. Why is it so low from one person? Is it because every single thing, the carpet, the headlights, or whatever it is that they end up you walking out sticker price is like $15,000 more than, if you with someone starting at a higher price. Could be, like you said, the website too. These are industry standard, things that you got to have. If I strip down all from it, it will be a lot cheaper than my competitor. But then every
Mhm.
single thing that I know that you're going to need are going to be $500 more, $500 more. Um, because when we are a buyer, we just, me too, I want to focus on the bottom price. But then at the end, I don't want the cheapest guy out there. And I know what I can expect for the cheapest, unless it's I'm buying something at a supermarket, then I'll go for the cheapest one. Maybe, that's me.
I would also argue this is the importance of niching down and getting specific in your market. If you ideally you're not competing with anybody, not just the worst thing to do is compete with people on price, but ideally you have a very specific solution, a very specific product or service that solves the end customer's problem. And if you have that, and it's very specific, and you're the only one in the marketplace, then the price doesn't particularly. It's not that the price doesn't matter, but you don't want the price to be the determining factor. So it's better to get very specific with your product or service and solve a very specific problem, and then charge a premium price for it that is value based. And then if you're not competing, and if you can describe the problem that the customer is having better than they can, they will automatically assume that you have the solution. You put all of those things together, you're in a much better position than somebody that's competing with 10 other companies, all providing the same product or service, and customers are just looking for the cheapest price. And one more thing on prices. The truth is that it's a race to the bottom, and there is no bottom, because you were talking about cars as an example. You could create a car that you give away for free, a free car, and there will still be a certain percentage of the market that doesn't want your solution. That is that the money doesn't matter, and they're willing to pay for a Rolls Royce or a Lamborghini. So your car being free versus a $300,000 car, that doesn't matter to them. Where so many people, they come in, they think, well, the price is the only thing that matters. And if I'm the lowest cost option, 100% of people will want my solution, my product, or my service. That's not true. You will never, ever get 100% market. And the fastest way to failure is to try and appease 100% of the market, because you absolutely can't. It's better to focus on maybe 3, 4, 5% of the market that is looking to pay for the premium service, the premium product, the premium solution, and just focus on those people. They're typically much better to work with. They know they have a problem. They're looking for a solution to it, and then you have high margins. It's a much better way to do it than the race to the bottom, 100% of the time.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I think a lot of people will buy for price, but a lot of people will also buy from the best, from the experts. So that's how marketing comes in. So you got to know, like you said, you can't target everyone. Everyone needs to go to a dentist at some point, but then there are different requests, and maybe you're scared of the dentist. Would you go for the cheapest dentist, or dentist that knows and treat their patients delicately? Then if I could afford, if you can afford it, then I would. Let's put it this way: I'll go to the one the best that I can afford. I won't go to the cheapest ever, right? Because you're cheap. That could be a lot of different. Even if you're a restaurant, if you're a supermarket, there are supermarket that I go to. There are higher prices, but then they have the best seafood. They have the best organic produce or whatever that fit into your business. There are always place for being the best. And like you being the expert, people like to go to an expert as much as they can. Would you want to, free, right? There are people online right now at Facebook or Craigslist. They'll do your project for free just to build on their portfolio. But then when you have,
it's probably not going to be a good situation. But they're not going to be happy at the end.
Where would you go to? It depends, and obviously you got to know who your markets are, and if you're marketing to the right people that can afford your product, and then they have the right expectation of what you're offering, then
Mhm.
that will be a mess. And that's how marketing will come in.
Absolutely, and there's so many examples out there. You could look at restaurants. You could look at like a Ruth's Chris versus McDonald's. Like, why would if it's a meal, you're going to get the same amount of calories. Like that's what we eat for. So
Mhm.
why would you go to Ruth's Chris and spend $100 when you can go to McDonald's and spend $2? Why would you do that? Because you want an experience. You want a certain high quality. Why would you go to Starbucks and spend $4 when you can go to McDonald's? McDonald's here again, McDonald's, and spend $1.25 on a cup of coffee. Why do you do that? Because you want a certain quality. You're looking for the best. You also could add an experience as well, but the customer experience, the cars. I use the example, you could have a free car and there will still be a percentage of the market that is not interested in your solution, that is looking for the absolute best. Obviously there is no free car, but look at like a Chevy. I think they still make the Chevy Cruze, which is like a $12,000 car. Well, that does the exact same thing as a Mercedes S-Class. It goes forward, it goes back, it turns left, it goes right. It has 4 wheels, it has 4 doors. Like, it can hold the same number of people. Why would somebody spend 10 times as much on the Mercedes versus the Chevy? It's experience. You like the experience of the interaction in the dealership. You were looking for quality. You want the absolute best. And Mercedes is making a lot more per vehicle than Chevy is. It's a lot easier to be the high-end, better, the best solution provider than it is to be the cheapest. And it forces you to provide a better quality service. You're not hiding behind those low prices. I've talked about this before, where when you are the cheap solution, you almost are subconsciously, you're like, well, what did you expect? like this, you went with the cheapest option. But if you're more expensive, you're holding yourself accountable to delivering high quality products or services, which always delivers a happier client. And it's just a better way to do things 100% of the time.
I think you also brought up a good point. You brought up McDonald's and Ruth Chris. Both companies know who they are targeting to. McDonald's easy meal anywhere in the world. You can expect the same thing from a McDonald's.
Quick
Ruth
and cheap.
Chris,
Yep.
if you want a luxury experience, fine dining, then you go to Ruth Chris. I think for a small business owner, it's the business do not know who they want to target, and they try to target, like you said, everybody. McDonald's and Ruth Chris don't target everyone. They're really specific in reaching out, their demographics. And that brings me to the next point. And you mentioned that if you want to be successful, you have to narrow your focus. So
Yes.
coming back to marketing, thinking in terms of a small business, knowing, what we have talked about the past 20 minutes, how would they develop that focus? If they haven't thought about it and they wanted to get into marketing, obviously that they need to focus. In small business, we have limited budget, right?
Mhm.
If we decide to do a marketing campaign, we don't have the capability or the financial to do a full-blown marketing. So how would they develop that focus, and how would you suggest that they reach out to those target markets?
So a few things there. First is kind of, I'm going to presume this is a small business that's already been in business for a few years.
Mhm.
In that case, kind of just like look back on previous clients, previous customers, and say, like, who were the best ones. It was just a seamless transaction. I enjoyed working with them. If you're a photographer, look back and you've done a bunch of all kinds of different photography services. Look back and say, weddings. I really enjoyed doing weddings. There was a high profit margin. The people were great to work with. Or maybe it's senior photos. I don't know a lot about photographers here, so I'm struggling. But it could be senior photos. And you look back and you say, "Oh, I've done a lot of senior photos, and the parents are great to work with. There was a high profit margin, things like that." Look back on previous clients that you've worked with and try to figure out like what are the similarities there. Typically, if you're doing, say, I mentioned web design. Maybe look back and say, I've done a bunch of websites for dentist's office, and those clients tended to be the best. Typically, you should be able to narrow it down to some kind of industry or vertical or niche, dentist office, senior photos, weddings, something like that. Just look for those common similarities there. And then take it one step further and say, like, what was the solution that they were specifically looking for? Or how could I define the problem that person was looking to solve? So again, I don't know a lot about photographers here, but I kind of already went with that example. Photographers, you could reach out to couples that they want memories to last a lifetime. That's probably a good headline for you right there. So you're reaching out to your ideal client, or is couples getting married who are looking to make a very memorable day. There are some people looking just for like the cheapest solution to get married, and then there's some people who are looking to spend money, that I want this to be the best day of my life. So they are willing to they're looking for memories that last a lifetime. Just looking for similarities there is definitely the best thing to do. And the more specific, the more niche down, the more narrow you can get, the better. I had mentioned earlier, when you can define the problem better than the end customer can, they will automatically presume that you have the solution. I'm going to give one other example here, and then I want to jump back to something you said about cost. For me, my agency, we work with a lot of like home service providers, plumbing and heating companies is an example I always use. If I'm looking to onboard new clients, if I'm looking for client attraction, I don't have on my landing page, I don't reach out to plumbing and heating companies and say, we help businesses with their marketing. Nope, nobody cares about that. A landing page would say something like, we specifically help plumbing and heating companies grow and get more install projects with direct response digital marketing solutions. So a few things there. I specifically help you. Imagine if you're a plumbing and heating company and you're reading that, and this landing page is speaking directly to me. It's saying that this company specifically helps my industry. And then I go even further. I talk about they're looking to get more install projects. Well, I figured that out because I looked at previous clients that I worked with. I noticed a lot of plumbing and heating companies, and I had industry insight to know that plumbing and heating companies, they make more money off of install projects. So that marketing is extremely targeted and extremely specific. And I'm defining the problem better than they can. They don't want just more clients. They want more install projects. So they just automatically assume that I have the solution for them. That's a perfect example. One of the things you mentioned, especially with small businesses, they have a limited budget. And you talked about like full-blown marketing and whatnot. A lot of folks get the misconception, or have the misconception, that they think they need 10 grand to start doing Facebook ads, or 10 grand to start doing Google ads. You could start with just like $10 a day. You're probably not going to turn a profit your first time, but just getting your feet wet and starting and investing in it and starting to learn it and get better and better. You don't want to wait until you have $10,000 in cash sitting around. And most of the time, if you just get a few fundamentals right, you're probably going to be able to at least break even or come close to breaking even. So maybe you spend $1,000 your first month, which I know might sound like a lot. So let's go with $500. You spend $500 your first month. You might only get back $400 in sales. That's still really good. Like, you only lost $100 and it was your first at bat. You're not going to hit a home run your first at bat. So maybe you spent $500 and you got back $400 in sales. So then the next month you spend $500. Maybe you get back $450. And then the month after that you spend $500 and you get back $500 and you break even. Like if you just continue to do that and get better and better and better, eventually you get to the point where you spend 500 and you get $5,000 in sales. Like you don't start at the top, but you don't want to sit on your hands, not doing anything, investing in your business, trying to get growth, and let 10 years go by until you randomly stumble upon $10,000. Because if you spend 10 grand your first month, you're probably still going to lose money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think in the beginning you mentioned something really correctly. If you're trying to develop where your focus are, look at your client list. Look at your accounting system who have purchased from you for the past year. Which job or project you made the most money on? Who bought from you? What kind of industry that they're in? Who was your point of contact? Are there anything that you did that were able to contribute to that profitable project? So once you figure it out, and you have to do some work, right, to find you're narrowing your focus. Try to clone those people. If they are buying from you, chances are, if they're in a similar industry, have similar problem, or maybe you solve for certain things that they couldn't find anyone else to do, right? Service industry, if you can fix the teeth with no pain, then you got it. If you are in a construction company, you're focusing on certain things that no one in your industry can do, then you're the number one. Maybe you have such a niche that you didn't know about, but then you won't know about it unless you really dig deep from your top 10. You have your top 10 client who give you, everyone look at the top 10 from 2020 who gave you the most business. If you can clone those people, even if you clone like top 10, you clone one of each of the top 10, then you have top 20 then you're growing your business. And then once you have that information, then you can contact Dylan and let them know exactly who they are. Then your job would be a lot easier than if you would go to Dylan and say, I want to start marketing. Where do I go? Wouldn't you agree with that statement?
100%. Two things further is don't just look at you are the business owner. You want to enjoy your business. So if you look back at I used the photographer earlier. Don't look back and just say who did I make the most money from, because it might be weddings, but you absolutely hate doing weddings. So you don't want to build your business around doing wedding photography if you absolutely hate weddings, or senior photos or newborn photos. Like you want to look back and say, who were my top 10 best clients? Who did I make the most money off of, and who did I enjoy to work with? And look for those similarities. And if you're really struggling, you're finding those similarities, it does not hurt to just pick up the phone, schedule a call with that person, or just send them an email and just say, hey, why did you go with me? What was it that stuck out? And maybe you find that all of your clients liked just a style that you did with your website design, or they liked if you're a photographer, they all found you on Instagram or something like that. We're like, I loved your work on Instagram, and that's why I went with you. Or you mentioned the dentist, which is funny because the only dental ad I ever remember seeing was a billboard that talked about like people who were being scared. I don't even remember how they did it, but it was for people who were scared of the dentist office. So probably what happened was that dentist reached out to previous clients, or just noticed that all of their patients kept mentioning, like, I saw your TV ad and it just made me feel so comfortable. Or people kept telling, previous patients kept telling me how you made them feel so comfortable and so safe. Things like that. So that could give you a little bit of guidance to say, hey, I noticed this similarity, that like all of my good patients that are happy with my service, they all mentioned that I made them feel safe. And I don't know what other adjectives to use here because I know nothing about the dental industry, but you made them feel comfortable. And maybe that's what you run with. So yeah, it does not hurt to reach out to previous people if you're struggling a little bit. Send them a quick email, give them a call. Most people are not going to have a problem just jumping on a 5-10 minute phone call with you and just telling you why they ended up going with your service or solution.
Yeah, and it's always nice to check in with your current client too. You build on that relationship. So
Yeah.
that brings me to my final question for the show. We have had a very difficult year. I wish 2020 would be gone already. So what would you suggest? Any idea for us planning for next year in terms of marketing?
In terms of marketing, I'm going to kind of go at this in a different direction, and I would say that for those of you out there who struggled, had a terrible year and whatnot, realize that the best companies, the best of times typically come after. It's the changes that you make now that lead those people to have the best times afterwards. Like fantastic companies. The only ones I can think of is like Campbell Soups. I just remember reading that story once. So it was started during the Great Depression. Like the war, like you think 2020 was terrible. Go back to the Great Depression, like study some history. And people saw the changes in the world were happening, and they created great products or services. So don't lose hope. Realize that when things are bad, that's almost a good thing in the end because it makes us better. So yeah, just be optimistic, I think, is probably the most important thing. Realize that things will get better. They could always be worse. 2020 was bad, but it wasn't the worst year in the history of humanity. It was a dumpster fire, but things could always be worse. As far as marketing specifically, I really think just people need to focus on it. And I'm not even suggesting use a company like mine. That's even if you're just realizing the importance of it and realize that it is your responsibility to manage the growth of your company. And sure, that might sound scary, but it's a whole heck of a lot better than just feeling like I don't really know where people are coming from. So, but again, it's scary. But if you just accept that responsibility going into the new year, and you take the reins with that, and you start to invest in it, both your time and your resources, no matter how limited, in the end, 2 years from now, next year, 3 years from now, you will be much better off. So, stay positive and take control of your situation. That would be my advice going into 2021.
Great, Dylan. Thanks for all the great advice. So if viewer listener wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way?
My personal website, dylanogline.com.
Okay, I'll put our show notes there, and for anyone who want to reach out to Dylan, go ahead. And Dylan, thank you so much for the information. I love our topic, and then I felt like that we could go on forever.
Absolutely, it was great being here. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Take care. Bye.